She was told to keep quiet, to handle things internally. But when silence became complicity, a single forwarded email lit the fuse, and the walls at the top began to crack. The office smelled of burnt coffee and ambition. It was 8:17 a.m. when Ava unlocked her monitor, blinking away the leftover tension from last night's meeting. Her inbox sat bloated, 72 unread messages, 4 with red flags, 3 with passive-aggressive, just following up subject lines. But her eyes locked on one with the subject. RE. Contract approval. Urgent sent at 11:43 p.m. from Ethan. Ethan Maddox, Director of Operations. The same man who leaned over her yesterday too close, voice sharp. Lower your voice and say sorry. She hadn't. Instead, she bit the inside of her cheek, turned back to her Excel sheet, and let the silence answer for her. This morning, she hovered her mouse over the email. Her gut coiled as she clicked. It was a thread. Long, messy, and at the bottom, an attachment, not a regular draft. A scanned contract marked final, signed, but the signature didn't match the original stakeholder's name. 2 more clicks, 1 look at the metadata, 1 long inhale. The document had been edited post-signature. She turned slightly in her chair, catching sight of the risk department's glass wall across the floor. A cold clarity settled over her. She didn't need to shout. She didn't need to say sorry. She just needed to forward the thread. But her hand hesitated over the mouse, 2 fingers resting like coiled springs. The office buzzed, phones ringing, the CFO's assistant crossing briskly with a clipboard. Ethan already in a meeting room laughing too loud, his voice echoing into the open floor. She hit forward, typed 1 word, flagged, sent it to risk at. She didn't look back. 2 hours later, an unfamiliar badge appeared in the elevator bay. Internal audit. Nobody said a word, but a ripple had started. In risk, someone tapped through Ava's email. Another forwarded it to legal. Quiet tension tightened the building like a held breath. By 3 p.m., Ava was called into a quick sync with HR. She expected a chill. Instead, her manager wouldn't meet her eyes. They asked routine questions, procedures, dates, who sent what. But at the end, the woman from audit closed her notebook slowly and said, "You did the right thing." The words felt heavier than expected. At 6:12 p.m., Ava stayed behind to finish a report. She watched Ethan storm past her desk, jaw clenched, phone white-knuckled to his ear. He didn't look her way, not yet. But his storm was coming, and she wasn't moving. She thought the email was the end. Turns out, it was only the match. The blaze hadn't started yet. By the next morning, Ava felt the shift the moment she stepped off the elevator. Silence had texture now, thick and suspicious. Desks that once buzzed with passive chatter had grown oddly monastic. The printer jam was no longer communal news. Even the intern's Spotify had gone mute. Ava walked through it all like a ghost in her own workplace, the echo of her heels swallowed by the unspoken. She reached her desk. Someone had moved her chair, subtle, but she noticed, and her second monitor was off, its cable mysteriously unplugged. A petty nudge, probably. She logged in. Her email opened to a single new message. Subject, meeting request, confidential from Allison Brandt, Director of Risk Compliance. Allison was no stranger, sharp suits, sharper eyes. Ava had only seen her in boardrooms or incident debriefs, never one-on-one. The meeting was in 14 minutes, no agenda. Room 4, C, second floor, near legal. Tension trickled down her spine like cold water. She stood, grabbed a notebook, smoothed her blazer. Zoom pings popped in the background like distant warning shots. As she crossed the floor, she noticed Ethan wasn't at his desk. Room 4C had no windows, just a matte conference table and a carafe of untouched coffee. Allison was already seated. Beside her, a man in a navy suit closed his folder when Ava entered. "This is Marcus Langston, internal counsel," Allison said without pleasantries. Marcus offered a practiced, unreadable smile. "We've reviewed your flagged email," Allison continued. "There are discrepancies in the contract. You did the right thing bringing it forward." Ava gave a slow nod, waiting. "But," Marcus said, folding his hands, "the edits didn't come from your department, and the digital trail leads to someone with senior access. Ethan. It had to be. We'll be conducting interviews," Allison added, "but you may face pushback. There's talk already." There it was, the warning cloaked as concern. "From who?" Ava asked, her voice level. Marcus shrugged gently. "Let's just say some people are more interested in who forwarded the email than in what it exposed." Ava's stomach turned, but she forced herself to sit taller. "We'll protect your anonymity," Allison offered, almost kindly. Ava met her eyes. "There's no such thing in this office." After the meeting, Ava walked past the CFO's glass-walled office. Inside, Ethan sat, arms crossed, red-faced. The CFO wasn't smiling. 2 floors down, Risk was already deep in a digital audit. Every version of the contract, every change tracked, every timestamp. By 4 p.m., Ethan requested a Zoom with Ava. She declined. By 5:30, someone had placed a company-branded envelope on her desk. No note, just a printed policy on confidentiality and a pen. She didn't sign. The building's temperature had dropped, or maybe it was just Ava. Still, she walked out with her head high, past the whispers, past the narrowed eyes, past the storm she'd sent rolling. They wanted her to apologize. She'd given them the truth instead. They thought they could freeze her out. But tomorrow, the temperature's dropping for someone else. What would you have done in Ava's place? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Quiet strength deserves loud support. Ava arrived at the office 10 minutes earlier than usual. Not because she had something urgent to do. Her report was already submitted the night before. She just didn't want to walk in at the same time as everyone else. She didn't want to hear them hearing about her. Because they knew now. Of course they did. Whispers had evolved into silence when she passed. That brand of quiet where no one makes eye contact, but everyone's pupils shift just enough to follow you as you move. She poured herself a coffee, even though her hands were slightly shaking. The kitchen smelled like burned toast and tension. When she turned back toward the floor, a Zoom chime rang out sharply from someone's laptop. A second later, another notification. All hands, emergency briefing, 11 a.m. Mandatory attendance subject line. Vague. Timing. Ominous. Sender. CFO. Office. She took a long sip of coffee, even though it tasted like metal. Back at her desk, a new email appeared, this one from someone she hadn't spoken to since onboarding. Diego Ramirez, internal audit subject. Follow up on submitted materials. He asked for clarification on 2 timestamps in the email thread and whether Ava had received the signed version directly from Ethan or from another department. It was procedural, but the subtext was acid clear. They're tightening the net. By 10:55 a.m., the entire office had that anxious, overly casual energy when everyone pretends they don't know something's happening, but absolutely no work is getting done. They filed into the main Zoom like an army entering a fog. Cameras off, mics muted. No one dared blink too loud. The CFO appeared first, stoic, then legal, then someone unexpected, Risk Department head herself, whom most had never seen in a live meeting. She cleared her throat. "This morning, we opened a formal investigation into procedural anomalies concerning contract authorization. This is a company-wide issue. As such, certain personnel have been placed on temporary leave pending the results." She didn't name names. She didn't have to. Everyone knew Ethan wasn't in the meeting. The CFO added something about integrity and zero tolerance. HR chimed in about psychological safety. The entire thing lasted 17 minutes and ended with a chilling sentence. "We appreciate the courage of those who chose transparency." The Zoom ended. Ava stared at her screen for 5 long seconds, then reopened Diego's email and typed out her reply. Clear, concise, neutral tone. She didn't need emotion in this. That would come later. But just as she was about to hit send, her inbox flashed again. From Ethan Maddox. Subject: seriously, no greeting, no signature, just one line. "If you think risk will protect you, you're more naive than I thought." Her hand trembled once, but she clicked delete, then, finally, sent her response to audit. She couldn't stop what was coming, but she sure as hell could make sure it hit him first. The next day opened with rain, hard, loud, and unrelenting, slashing against the office windows like it wanted in. Ava sat at her desk, staring at the storm while the floor stirred with murmurs. But no one was talking about the weather. At 9:06 a.m., the company Slack erupted, not with gossip, with a new channel, #transparency-audit-updates, created by internal audit, visible to the whole company. The first pinned message read, "To ensure procedural clarity and full visibility, updates related to the contract investigation will be shared here. Marcus Langston, legal." Ava blinked. She read it again. No one in this company ever aired dirty laundry in public channels. This wasn't just internal, it was a signal. Another message dropped. "As of this morning, 2 senior managers are on temporary leave. Further updates pending." No names again, but the floor buzzed like a short circuit. Someone behind her whispered, "Do you think it's Ethan?" Ava didn't turn around. Her hands stayed still on the keyboard, though her heart did something sharp behind her ribs. At 10:22, a direct message popped up on her screen, from an unexpected name, Claire R., former risk analyst. They hadn't spoken since Claire was quietly transferred last year. Rumor was, she clashed with leadership. Claire: "Hey, saw the channel. If you're the one who flagged it, just good on you." Then another message followed. "They buried mine. I didn't have proof. You did. Keep going." Ava stared at the screen. Her throat tightened. Claire wasn't the only one. By lunchtime, 2 more quiet messages came in, one from a junior in procurement, another anonymous through the HR feedback portal, all hinting at similar edits, similar pressure. All roads, it seemed, curved back to the same office. She took the elevator to the risk floor after lunch, a quiet walk, a purposeful one. The hallway was dim, the kind with recycled air and too many NDAs. Allison met her at the door, already knowing why she'd come. "We're connecting the dots. You started something important." Ava nodded once, but as she turned to leave, she caught something unexpected out of the corner of her eye, a printed copy of the same contract on someone's desk, and a sticky note with Ethan's handwriting, the signature, the timestamp, the edit, still here, still tangible, still damning. She took a photo. No one stopped her. By 4 p.m., Ava sat back at her desk, email open, cursor blinking. She hovered over a draft, subject line blank, body half-written. Not to risk this time, not to legal, to the CEO's executive assistant. 5 words. "You'll want to see this." Then she clicked send. It wasn't the reply that surprised her, it was how fast it came. 12 minutes after Ava sent the photo and that 5-word note, her inbox lit up, not with a reply, but a calendar invite. Private review, executive office. No subject line, no details, just the CEO's assistant and a 3:15 p.m. slot. Conference room 17B, top floor. She stared at it like it might bite. Then she clicked, accept. By 2:58, she was already on the elevator, alone. The mirrored walls caught her reflection. Steady gaze, loose curls pinned back, blazer buttoned, eyes colder than she'd remembered. The storm she'd set in motion was no longer behind her. It was beside her now, rising. The top floor didn't feel like the rest of the building. It smelled of leather and polished wood, quiet as a courtroom. She walked the hall like someone trespassing, though no one stopped her. When she entered 17B, the lights were already dimmed. A single screen glowed on the far wall, displaying the contract she had sent, highlighted edits, metadata trails, redacted names already marked in yellow. The CEO wasn't there, but his chief of staff, 2 legal directors, and a stern woman she'd never seen before were. The woman introduced herself simply. "Elaine, outside counsel?" Her tone didn't invite questions. Elaine gestured to a chair. "You're not in trouble," she said, as though the room hadn't already pressed the breath from Ava's lungs. "We just need context. Walk us through what you saw." Ava did. Clear, chronological, no embellishment. When she finished, no one spoke right away. Then Elaine nodded slowly. "We've confirmed this edit was used in a Q4 filing, misrepresented data. That turns it from policy violation to reportable offense." One of the legal directors glanced at the screen, then back to Ava. "Did Ethan pressure you in writing, verbally?" She hesitated. "Verbally, in a meeting, in front of others." They nodded, took notes, asked 2 more questions. Then Elaine leaned back, arms folded. "You know this puts you at the center? Are you ready for that?" Ava didn't answer right away. She looked down at the table, at her hands, steady now. "No one else was," she said finally. "So, I guess I have to be." They ended the meeting without fanfare. No promises, no thanks, just the sterile tone of a system waking up after sleeping through too many warnings. As Ava stepped back into the elevator, her phone buzzed. New Slack message. "Ethan Maddox has been removed from the company directory." No announcement, no statement. Just gone. A ripple ran through the floor when she returned. But no one said anything, not yet. She opened her inbox again. A single unread email waited at the top. From Internal Audit Subject, Final Notes Confidential. And then, beneath that, another new message. From Claire R., no subject, just a file attachment. The file name read, "You're going to want this." The file was a zip, encrypted, password protected. Ava stared at it, pulse ticking behind her ears. She trusted Claire, but the timing, the vagueness, it all felt razor thin between warning and revelation. She replied, "Safe to open?" The response came instantly. "Yes. Use Ombre.13. Odd code, but Ava typed it. The zip unlocked. Inside, a folder labeled 2019 to 2021, 7 PDFs, 1 Excel, a screenshot, and an audio file. She opened the Excel first. It looked routine until she saw the pivot table. It tracked discrepancies in contract approvals, inconsistencies between signed documents, and financial execution. And Ethan's name wasn't the only one repeating. The PDF labeled Case Note, June 2020, made her hands go cold. It was Claire's original report, buried, marked as insufficient evidence. But the attachments now weren't. The audio file was last. Ava clicked play. The recording was grainy. 2 men. One was Ethan. "Just scrub it. No one's looking that deep." "Risk has red flags on this already." "Then we bury Risk. You want to keep this job or not?" She hit pause. Her breath hitched. Ava leaned back, eyes on the ceiling tiles. The walls of the office seemed to close in slightly, not with pressure, but precision. The kind of shift that meant no more smoke, no more mirrors. The evidence Claire had gathered was deeper, wider. And it had been suppressed systematically. Ava's email wasn't the match. It was the second fuse. Claire had lit the first. By 2:40 p.m., Ava had assembled the pieces, the spreadsheet, the PDFs, the timeline. She added her findings, cross-referenced the edited contracts from last month with those old cases. Then she did something she hadn't done since the storm began. She walked straight into risk. Allison looked up from her desk. "I saw the news," she said carefully. "I have more," Ava replied. She placed the folder down, paper and printed screenshots included. Allison opened it, her eyes narrowed. Her hand stopped on a name. Not Ethan's, someone higher. "This changes everything." "Yeah," Ava said quietly. "That's the problem." Allison stood, picked up the phone. "Get Audit, now." Outside the glass walls, Ava watched the rain lighten for the first time in days. The city skyline blurred, but something else had come into focus. She wasn't the only one. But she might be the only one who stayed standing. They called it a containment protocol. But Ava knew a cleanup when she saw one. By the end of the week, 6 more names had quietly vanished from the employee directory. 2 were VPs. One was on the strategic planning board, another had just led last month's all hands. Each exit arrived the same way. A late-day calendar lock, a deleted Slack profile, and a hallway left echoing with unanswered questions. No emails, no farewells, just digital evaporation. Inside Risk, a new rhythm took over, frenetic, exacting. Internal Audit transformed from the polite background department into a silent force sweeping through folders, files, and version histories. Laptops were quietly collected, cloud access logs combed. Ava stayed late again, not because she had to, but because the building felt different in those quiet hours, like it belonged to her a little more. It was on one of those nights, near 8 p.m., when she spotted a printed spreadsheet carelessly left in the copy room. Columns of initials, dates, vendor codes. One name caught her eye: L. Weller, the CFO. She snapped a photo, not out of paranoia anymore, but strategy. Because things weren't just unraveling, they were restructuring. The next morning, Ava received an invite to a private Zoom. Subject: Strategic Review. Risk Alignment attendees: CEO, Legal, CFO, Ava Lynn. She stared at the name, CFO, still here, for now, 3 p.m. conference room, 21A. She arrived 5 minutes early. The room was vast and cold, all chrome and glass. The CFO sat at the end of the table, back straight, fingers steepled like a man who believed posture could outpace consequence. The CEO entered last. No smile, no chit-chat. He pulled a chair and said, "I want to hear it from you, Ava. What exactly did you see?" Ava didn't blink. A pattern? Altered contracts, suppressed reports, threats. "And you believe Mr. Weller was involved?" "I believe he signed off." The CFO exhaled slowly. Dangerous accusation. "It's not an accusation," she said. "It's documented." She slid a folder forward. Inside, Claire's original report, her own findings, the spreadsheet from the copier, and the audit log of the altered contract, with timestamps that crossed Weller's final approvals. The CEO took his time reading. The silence stretched. Finally, he said, "This is bigger than we expected." Weller leaned forward. "You're trusting her word over 20 years of my service?" "No," the CEO said calmly. "I'm trusting the evidence." Weller stood, too fast. "You want a scandal?" he snapped. "Because that's what you'll get if this leaks." Ava stood too, but her voice was calm, icy, unshakable. "Then don't leak it." Weller stared at her, For a second, just a second, Ava saw the truth behind his eyes. Not panic, calculus. He wasn't afraid of the fire, he was just doing the math on who'd burn first. The CEO turned to legal. Put him on leave, effective immediately. Start the process. Weller didn't shout. He walked out like a man late to lunch. Ava sat down again. Her knees weren't shaking, not this time. The CEO looked at her, measured. You ever considered staying in risk? I thought I was a problem, she said. He smiled faintly. Some problems fix things. The Monday after Weller's quiet exit, the office felt lighter, but not calm. It was the weightless quiet that comes after an earthquake, paper still fluttering, desks half shifted, cracks visible if you knew where to look. Ava arrived to find her nameplate moved. It now sat outside a glass-walled office on the risk floor. No announcement, no welcome email, just a corner desk, a new monitor, and a clean inbox except for one message. Subject, welcome aboard. From Allison Brandt, you've earned the seat. Let's fix what they left behind. She stared at it a moment before minimizing the window. The seat didn't feel like a prize, more like a checkpoint. By 10 a.m., she was already fielding a backlog, open cases, leftover red flags, and a long-forgotten document request from procurement that had sat untouched since April. Claire, now officially reinstated as a risk analyst, messaged her mid-morning. You settling in? Barely sat down. You're gonna need coffee, and maybe armor. She wasn't wrong. The wreckage left by Ethan, Weller, and the rest was deeper than expected. There were contracts with initials no one recognized. Vendor payments marked approved weeks before official sign-off. Expense logs that curled into vague black holes. At 1:37 p.m., Ava found it, tucked in an archived folder labeled Q1_recon_old. A scanned page with a handwritten note from Ethan, dated months before her email. Push this through. Weller's already seen it. Delete once done. The file was never deleted. It had been buried. She sent it to audit, no hesitation. And then, almost instinctively, she stood, walked to the break room, and stared out the window. Rain again. Always rain. Claire joined her a moment later, sipping lukewarm coffee. They used to say we were paranoid, Claire muttered. Called me disruptive, told me to smile more. They told me to lower my voice, Ava said. Claire snorted. Guess they should have listened when we spoke up. They stood in silence for a while. Two women the system tried to silence, now architects of its rebuild. Back at her new desk, Ava opened a blank document. She titled it, Protocol, Anonymous Disclosure Pathways. Because the next Ava shouldn't have to send a risky email. She should have a system designed to protect her first, and that's exactly what Ava planned to build. By Thursday, the whispers had turned to nods, not of gossip, but respect. Quiet ones, the kind exchanged in passing hallways, at the elevator, in the pause before a Zoom call begins. Ava didn't crave recognition, but she noticed the shift. The floor moved differently now, eyes met hers instead of skimming past. People lingered when they said good morning. The company had changed, slightly, sharply. And change had a name now, hers. Her project, the Anonymous Disclosure Pathways Protocol, had been fast-tracked. Legal reviewed the draft, Risk endorsed it, and the CEO signed off in less than 48 hours. Unheard of. They were rolling it out in Q1, with her as the internal lead. She hadn't even had time to process that when her calendar chimed again. Subject, Ethics Committee, Founding Member Onboarding. No sender, just the system. 1 chair, 6 names. Ava's was first. She leaned back in her chair, letting the news settle. She should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt tired. There was still rot in old drawers, names whispered in corners that hadn't surfaced yet. But for now, the biggest cracks had been filled, and she had survived, not by yelling louder, not by threatening, but by being meticulous, relentless, and calm in the storm. At 5:43 p.m., as she prepared to leave, she received one last message. From CEO, subject, gratitude. This company owes you more than you know. If there's ever a moment you think we're slipping, send the email. No signature, just a sentence. She smiled faintly. In the elevator down, her reflection caught her by surprise. The same woman who had been told to lower her voice now stood at the center of a safer system. As she walked out into the rainy dusk, phone off, blazer unbuttoned, a warm wind pushed against her, soft but sure. She didn't turn back. She didn't have to. 3 weeks later, a cardboard box arrived at Ava's desk. No name, no sender, no note. Inside, one leather-bound notebook, no branding, no company logo, just an embossed line on the first page. Document everything. She smiled. Claire peeked over from her desk. Secret admirer? Ava turned the notebook toward her. Claire's grin said she understood. Since the launch of the anonymous reporting protocol, Risk had received 14 submissions. 4 were minor, 5 were in active review, and 2 had triggered department-wide audits. Ava's office, now decorated with plants instead of post-its, had become a quiet kind of beacon. People knocked on her door with questions they once swallowed. Not loud, not dramatic, but honest. One afternoon, a junior associate from finance lingered after a presentation. "Can I ask you something?" she said, nervous. "How did you know when to say something?" Ava thought for a moment, then said softly, "I didn't. I just knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore." The girl nodded, eyes wide, and whispered, "Thank you." That was what this was now, not revenge, not cleanup, legacy. At the next all-hands, the CEO addressed the company from a different tone, not fire and fury, but reflection. "We failed to listen before. Some of us paid the price, and some of us, thankfully, spoke anyway." He paused, then looked directly into the camera. "To those who risked being disliked to do what was right, we see you." No names, but Ava knew. Later, walking back to her desk, she passed the office where Ethan once sat, empty now, repurposed into a training room for new hires. The door was open. She stepped in. Same windows, same view. She walked to the whiteboard and, in black marker, wrote 2 words. Ask why. Then she left the room exactly as it was, because some reminders should stay visible. The rain outside had finally stopped, and Ava Lynn had rewritten the story without raising her voice.